You guys, wanted to make a quick video for you about the cost curve exercise that you did. Feeling quite a bit better, just waiting to get back. Hopefully get a negative test result today or tomorrow, and then can be back to school, I hope, on Monday. Sorry that you have to kind of navigate this stuff on your own. Keep working at it. It is pretty important stuff going forward. It may be confusing, but just stick with it. All right, so let's walk through these graphs here together. In panel number one, we're drawing the total product curve, which relates output to variable input, or output, you could simply put input down here on the horizontal axis, or even just quantity of labor. Total product accelerates its slope. Its slope is increasing, and then its slope is decreasing, and then the slope becomes negative. So remember that shape of the total product curve. Relationship of total product to marginal product is extremely important. There's two very important points. The most important point is that your total product maximum right here is in line with marginal product at 0. That is really important. Second most important is that the marginal product maximum right here is in line with the total product, where the acceleration or the slope stops. It stops, curving upward, and it starts to sort of decelerate. And then finally, we have the average product and the marginal product. How do they relate? Remember that marginal product is what drives the average product. So if marginal product is above the average product is rising. If marginal product is less than average product, then average product is falling. Therefore, the maximum of average product has to be right where it hits the marginal product. In our second panel, we have our average cost curves, all three of them. And I forgot to label my axis. So the vertical axis here should be perhaps a dollar sign is a good way to label that. And then for the horizontal axis, we could label this with output, or we could label it with a Q perhaps for quantity. There's a weird glitch. I don't know if you saw that, but my computer just kind of glitched out. I hope it's still recording. All right, average total cost is the highest of the three cost curves always, and that's because average fixed plus average variable equals average total. So as you're going from the bottom straight up, you have to basically think that you could add together the average variable and the average fixed to get average total. I'll talk more about that in a moment. But your average total cost decreases at first, and then it increases. It decreases initially because the average fixed cost is falling so quickly that it pulls it down. And then it starts to increase as the average variable cost really starts to take off and drives up your average total cost. Average variable cost is always less than average total cost if there are any fixed costs, and it also has sort of a U shape. Important note, though, is that the average total and average variable curves are going to get closer together as you move to the right. So in other words, the vertical distance between average total and average variable right there should be greater than it is over on this side, where they're getting closer to each other. And the reason for that is because this vertical distance between average total and average variable, the distance between them is your average fixed cost. So in other words, right here, where average total and average variable are that far across, the average fixed cost goes from here down to 0, and those two lines, the blue and the red, should be about the same length. So if you look over here where I have the average total and average variable getting close together, you'll notice the average fixed is about the same distance as between the ATC and the AVC. They don't have to be exact, but the important thing is that ATC and AVC must be getting closer together as you move to the right this direction, because the average fixed is always decreasing. Average fixed cost is always decreasing. Think about it. Fixed cost is a constant number, say $100. And as you move to the right, you're simply dividing that $100 or whatever the fixed cost is by larger and larger quantities. So it's always getting smaller. It's an asymptote. It just keeps getting closer to the horizontal axis. It'll never touch it, but it will get increasingly closer as you move to the right. It never rises. On the third panel, we have our ATC, AVC, and we want to show the relationship with the marginal cost. The marginal cost is the cost of producing one more unit. In the same way that in the first panel, average product and marginal product are related, marginal cost and our average total and average variable are related as well. So if the marginal cost is less than the average variable cost, then the average variable cost must be falling. Same is true with average total cost. If marginal cost is less than average total cost must be falling. So that is true over on this side of the graph right here, where marginal cost is the lowest point on this red line, and therefore AVC and ATC are both decreasing at that point. As soon as marginal cost hits the average variable cost and then rises above it, the average variable cost has to now start to increase. Therefore, the lowest point on the AVC curve must be where the marginal cost crosses it. And the same is true with ATC. Where the marginal cost crosses ATC, the ATC stops decreasing and starts to increase. So the lowest point on the ATC must be where it crosses the marginal cost curve. And final point is that the marginal cost curve itself, think of a Nike swoosh symbol, kind of looks like a Nike swoosh. It always decreases initially and then it starts to increase and get much higher. And one thing I would tell you is that the marginal cost curve and the marginal product curve, they are related to each other. So you'll notice the marginal product goes up at first and then decreases. The marginal cost goes down at first and then increases. They're sort of the inverse of one another. And we'll talk more about that down the road. In panel number 4, let's look at the problem. So if you learned something from me in panels 1 through 3, hopefully you can apply them in panels 4, 5, and 6. In panel 4, we got some labeling problems. The bottom label is that it should be average fixed cost, AFC, and the top label should be ATC. And then you notice that the distance between what should be my ATC and my average variable cost is actually getting larger. So the fact that this line over here is longer than this line over here is problematic. And so we have to, contend with that and fix that. All right, for panel number 5, is problematic in the same way that it doesn't look like panel number 3. So the marginal cost curve has the Nike swoosh. That's great. However, notice it's not hitting average variable cost at the apparent minimum point for average variable cost. So marginal cost should be going through this red line there. And then marginal cost should be going through the low point of ATC. So a better marginal cost curve would look something like this, kind of up through there. And I don't know if you can see that yet. My computer is really struggling right now. Let's continue that line onward. Here we go. So marginal cost should look something like that. Finally, in panel 6, all sorts of problems. Of course, it doesn't look like panel number 1, but it should. The average product and the marginal product, the labels are switched. The marginal product maximum should be in line with the total product inflection point. So assuming the curve that's labeled average product should be my marginal product curve. And the maximum point on that is right there. And that really should be in line with the total product curve right about there. So the marginal product needs to be shifted to the left. And then the point where the apparent marginal product curve is 0 really needs to be in line with the maximum of total product. So this curve really needs to be shifted over to the left a little bit to work out better. The average product, though, or the curve that ought to be labeled average product, this one right here, is doing pretty well. It's crossing the marginal product at about its high point. It looks like it might have missed a little bit. That just might be my own graph drawing. So keep practicing these. The thing I would really encourage you to do is to see if you can just memorize these, frankly. Draw these over and over again until you get them right. Muscle memory really is important. Over the next number of units, we're going to be drawing, in particular, this graph right there. That is the one that's most important. If you wanted to practice one in particular, make sure you get that right every single time. Again, ATC and AVC must be converging as you move to the right, and marginal cost must be hitting the low point on average variable and average total as it goes up through them. All right, have a great weekend, everybody.